Hello. Come on out. I have something I want to read to you. Here, have a seat. Also, help yourself with some pie if you'd like. Strawberry rhubarb, 40% off. Mmm. Mmm. It is beautiful, beautiful, luxurious spring weather outside the past yesterday and today. And I got to walk my friend's dog and go see the creek running, and it was very good. It was very good. Um, what I want to read is a little bit from the Napoleon of Notting Hill. This has been one of my favorites by Chesterton, by G.K. Chesterton, Gilbert Keith Chesterton, and one that I've enjoyed quite a bit since, I don't know, maybe my late teens or when I was in college. It's funny, sometimes a book can be a bit of a time capsule in a particular way. This one, I realized this is a physical copy that I most often listen to the audiobook when I revisit it. So when I opened the physical copy a little bit ago, I found this stack of papers that is a little bit revealing of my life at the moment. There's this says library fines are a badge of honor, and I remember picking this up at some sort of national reading campaign was what it was, but it was at the Ontario Library Association conference. And I mean, most libraries now don't even have fines. Let's see, and there's a photo of my granny. I don't know for sure why I put it in here. There's a picture of basically a bread pun that somebody gave me because they know I like puns. But I kind of remember this, and this would have been many years ago too that someone gave me that. Now this is a photo from way before I actually read this book. This would have been me and as my sister and a friend of ours. And we had other friends as well at the thing we were doing. We were the cast of Gilligan's Island for a local parade float. And I had to be Mr. Howell. Do you see me with my pith helmet? Because there weren't enough guys to be all the characters. That's a good memory. And here, most significant of all, is the entire floor plan for Exhibit Hall C in the 2014 Ontario Library Association Super Conference. So somehow all of those things got jumbled together, and wound up stacked into this book, and to be somewhat forgotten for more than 10 years. But anyway, I wanted to read a passage. I'm trying to think how to introduce this story. It is a kind of a future dystopia, set, interestingly enough, in 1984. This was written before the book 1984 by George Orwell, so I kind of wonder if that's where he picked the date based on this at all. I'm not sure. Anyway, things more or less remain. Chesterton kind of predicts the future as being essentially the same as his day, except that there's like kind of a very imperialism empire mindset, all the smaller countries gobbled up inside in the big nations, and a sort of a cynicism, a kind of a anyway, you'll get kind of a taste of kind of the world. The book takes place in London, and we meet three English bureaucrats in kind of the opening scenes, and then by the time we get to this chapter, which is I think chapter 2, The Man in Green, is where they meet another character who appears in this chapter. So I kind of want to read a little bit of that interaction. Okay, so Oberon Quinn kind of becomes one of the central characters. We meet like the other central character, the title character, in like later on in the book. And he's one of these three kind of, I guess, I feel like bureaucrat is kind of the right term for them, at least at this point in the story. Um, so they're meeting up. Here we go. Okay. They were about to turn into the restaurant with a resigned air when their eyes were caught by something in the street. The weather, though cold and blank, was now quite clear, and across the dull brown of the wood pavement and between the dull grey terraces was moving something not to be seen for miles round, not to be seen, perhaps, at that time in England. A man dressed in bright colours. A small crowd hung on the man's heels. He was a tall, stately man, clad in a military uniform of brilliant green, splashed with great silver facings. From the shoulder swung a short green furred cloak, somewhat like that of a hussar, the lining of which gleamed every now and then with a kind of tawny crimson. His breast glittered with medals, round his neck was the red ribbon and star of some foreign order, and a long, straight sword, with a blazing hilt, trailed and clattered along the pavement. At this time, the pacific and the utilitarian development of Europe had relegated all such customs to the museums. The only remaining force, the small but well-organized police, were attired in a somber and hygienic manner. But even those who remember the last lifeguards and lancers who disappeared in 1912 must have known at a glance that this was not, and never had been, an English uniform. And this conviction would have been heightened by the yellow aquiline face, like Dante carved in bronze, which rose, crowned with white hair, out of the green military collar, keen and distinguished, but not an English face. The magnificence with which the green-clad gentleman walked down the centre of the road would be something difficult to express in human language. For it was an ingrained simplicity and arrogance, something in the mere carriage of the head and body which made ordinary moderns in the street stare after him. But it had comparatively little to do with the actual conscious gestures or expression. In the matter of these merely temporary movements, the man appeared to be rather worried and inquisitive. But he was inquisitive with the inquisitiveness of a despot, and worried with the responsibilities of a god. The men who lounged and wondered behind him followed partly with an astonishment at his brilliant uniform. That is to say, partly because of that instinct which makes us all follow one who looks like a madman, but far more because of that instinct which makes all men follow and worship anyone who chooses to behave like a king. He had to so sublime an extent that great quality of royalty, an almost imbecile unconsciousness of everybody, that people went after him, as they do after kings, to see what would be the first thing or person he would take notice of. And all the time, as we have said, in spite of his quiet splendor, there was an air about him, as if he were looking for somebody, an expression of inquiry. Suddenly the expression of inquiry vanished, none could tell why, and was replaced by an expression of contentment. Amid the rapt attention of the mob of idlers, the magnificent green gentleman deflected himself from his direct course down the centre of the road and walked to one side of it. He came to a halt opposite to a large poster of Coleman's Mustard, erected on wooden hoarding. His spectators almost held their breath. He took from a small pocket in his uniform a little penknife. With this, he made a slash at the stretched paper. Completing the rest of the operation with his fingers, he tore off a strip or rag of paper, yellow in color, and wholly irregular in outline. Then, for the first time, the great being addressed his adoring onlookers. "Can anyone," he said, with a pleasing foreign accent, "lend me a pin?" Mr. Lambert, who happened to be nearest, and who carried innumerable pins for the purpose of attaching innumerable buttonholes, lent him one, which was received with extravagant but dignified bows, and hyperbole of thanks. The gentleman in green, then, with every appearance of being gratified, and even puffed up, pinned the piece of yellow paper to the green silk, and silver lace adornments of his breast. Then he turned his eyes round again, searching and unsatisfied. "Anything else I can do, sir?" asked Lambert, with the absurd politeness of the Englishman when once embarrassed. "Read," said the stranger vaguely. "Read." "I beg your pardon?" "I beg yours also, senor," said the stranger, bowing. "I was wondering whether any of you had any red about you." "Any red about us? Well, really, no. I don't think I have. I used to carry a red bandana once, but—" "Barker," said Oberon Quinn suddenly, "where's your red cockatoo? Where's your red cockatoo?" "What do you mean?" asked Barker desperately. "What cockatoo? You've never seen me with any cockatoo." "I know," said Oberon, vaguely mollified. "Where's it been all the time?" Barker swung round, not without resentment. "I am sorry, sir," he said, shortly but civilly. "None of us seem to have anything red to lend you. But why, if one may ask—" "I thank you, senor. It is nothing. I can, since there is nothing else, fulfill my own requirements." And standing for a second of thought, with a penknife in hand, he stabbed his left palm. The blood fell so full a stream that it struck the stones without dripping. The foreigner pulled out his handkerchief and tore a piece from it with his teeth. The rag was immediately soaked in scarlet. "Since you are so generous, senor," he said, "another pin, perhaps?" Lambert held one out, his eyes protruding like a frog's. The red linen was pinned beside the yellow paper, and the foreigner took off his hat. "I have to thank you all, gentlemen," he said, and wrapping the remainder of the handkerchief round his bleeding hand, he resumed his walk with an overwhelming stateliness. While all the rest paused in some disorder, little Mr. Oberon Quinn ran after the stranger and stopped him with hat in hand. Considerably to everybody's astonishment, he addressed him in the purest Spanish. "Senor," he said in that language, "pardon a hospitality perhaps indiscreet towards one who appears to be a distinguished but a solitary guest in London. Will you do me and my friends, with whom you have held some conversation, the honor of lunching with us at the adjoining restaurant?" The man in the green uniform had turned a fiery color of pleasure at the mere sound of his own language, and he accepted the invitation with that profusion of bows which so often shows, in the case of the southern races, the falsehood of the notion that ceremony has nothing to do with feeling. "Senor," he said, "your language is my own, but all my love for my people shall not lead me to deny to yours the possession of so chivalrous an entertainer. Let me say that the tongue is Spanish, but the heart English." And he passed with the rest into Cincinnati's. "Now, perhaps," said Barker, over the fish and sherry, intensely polite, but burning with curiosity, "perhaps it would be rude of me to ask why you did that." "Did what, senor?" asked the guest, who spoke English quite well, though in a manner indefinably American. "Well," said the Englishman, in some confusion, "I mean, tore a strip off the hoarding, and, cut yourself, and—" "To tell you that, senor," answered the other, with a certain sad pride, "involves merely telling you who I am. I am Juan del Fuego, President of Nicaragua." The manner in which the President of Nicaragua leant back and drank his sherry showed that to him this explanation covered all the facts observed, and a great deal more. Barker's brow, however, was still a little clouded. "And the yellow paper?" he began, with anxious friendliness, "and the red rag?" "The yellow paper and the red rag," said Fuego, with indescribable grandeur, "are the colors of Nicaragua." "But Nicaragua," began Barker with great hesitation, "Nicaragua is no longer, Nicaragua has been conquered, like Athens. Nicaragua has been annexed, like Jerusalem," cried the old man with amazing fire. "The Yankee and the German and the brute powers of modernity have trampled it with the hoofs of oxen. But Nicaragua is not dead. Nicaragua is an idea." Oberon Quinn suggested timidly, "A brilliant idea." "Yes," said the foreigner, snatching at the word, "you are right, generous Englishman. An idea brilliant. A burning thought. Senor, you asked me why, in my desire to see the colors of my country, I snatched at paper and blood. Can you not understand the ancient sanctity of the colors? The church has her symbolic colors. And think of what colors mean to us. Think of the position of one like myself who can see nothing but those two colors, nothing but the red and yellow. To me, all shapes are equal, all common and noble things are in democracy of combination. Wherever there is a field of marigolds and the red cloak of an old woman, there is Nicaragua. Wherever there is a field of poppies and a yellow patch of sand, there is Nicaragua. Wherever there is a lemon and a red sunset, there is my country. Wherever I see a red pillar box and a yellow sunset, there my heart beats. Blood and a splash of mustard can be my heraldry. If there be yellow mud and red mud in the same ditch, it is better to me than white stars. And if, said Quid with equal enthusiasm, there should happen to be yellow wine and red wine at the same lunch, you could not confine yourself to sherry. Let me order some Burgundy and complete, as it were, a sort of Nicaraguan heraldry in your inside. Yes, and it goes on. I mean, the entire book is, I find, very fascinating. But I will leave that there. Since reading that, color was already so significant to me, but it's kind of shaped my view of color, particularly yellow and red. Of course, I can't actually see those colors together, it feels like, without thinking of this book and thinking of Nicaragua and like extra significance that you find in the rest of the story. I don't know if I feel like I looked it up at one point, and I'm not sure if red and yellow actually are the colors of Nicaragua, or maybe they were at one point. I'm trying to remember what the flag looks like now, but I feel like I looked it up and maybe it wasn't. But whether Chesterton actually knew a lot about Nicaragua or not, I'm not sure. But I really appreciate this. This little glimpse of, and this character doesn't really continue through the story, but the theme of like what of their conversation is super important to the rest of the book. And yeah, just the idea of individuality of like a community and a country, and the way colors connect to like the things that matter most to us, and the sort of power. Yeah. Anyway, so this story is kind of something that definitely impacted me in different ways, but especially the way that I think about color. So I wanted to share that with you. Kind of a longer one, but I felt like I needed that much of the conversation. So I'm gonna let you go now, and we'll read something together again sometime. Have a good one. Bye.